What we have here is that 575 that I just stuck together. Dirty air filter and all. Stock muffler unmodified. It's really all choked up. And a 24-inch bar and chain. I like those. They're pretty good. Now that chain pretty much just came off the grinder. And this is a 572 with a 28-inch bar, higher compression piston, in muffler mod. Seen it on the channel before. So I'm just curious, what do you really gain, you know, in 10 or 15 years of development, plus a tweaked saw versus a basically stock saw? Because that one has a pop-up piston. That one's got compression sitting around 175. That one might be 150, 155. So there's about a 20-pound compression difference, but that one's got a shorter bar. Chains, both of them they're all right. They're not the best. But my goal for this evening is just to sort of give a ballpark. You'll be able to see and hear the difference between the two saws. And I'm going to run that 575 quite a bit to see if it lasts. And I'm going to do things like noodle with it tonight too. Just burn a tank, possibly 2 tanks, and just see what it does. But what I want to do to begin with is fire them both up. I got a couple of logs here to split too, get them out of the way. And then use the 572 to make a couple of cookies for a baseline, just to give you sort of a order of magnitude sense of what the 70cc saw of today should do. And then go back and do the same with a 575 and then do some noodling and just see how it handles. And what I'm looking for out of this, a low-cost build. That's what the goal is, because these things are not very expensive. They are not very popular. I kind of went through that in a prior video as to why. They had case issues. Mostly they rattled apart like this one did. And for that reason, the Pro loggers kind of shied away from them because of those teething issues. And the other thing is they're pretty heavy for the power they put out. So the combination of reliability issues with the cases and that extra poundage per horsepower, they simply didn't sell that well. But it's an OEM saw. It has OEM quality parts. And my gamble is that for most people who are not pro loggers, if you build it the way I just did, using the 1184, the K-screws and stuff like that, basically gluing them in, you mitigate the problems, if not solve them, and you have a very nice, smooth, relatively quiet 70cc class saw, you know, that can get a lot of work done. And I would say this is kind of like an alternative to a clone saw. Finding one of these and broke up and busting the cases down like I did in the video, putting in bearings and seals and building it back up and, you know, putting it to work. It's what a hobby saw is. And of course this 572 is essentially the same thing. Is I built it out of some broken parts. I added some new parts to it, but for the most part it's a high hour cylinder with a aftermarket pop-up piston. Yeah, the muffler mod, and that's about it. So I think it's representative of the 572, just the way it's going to run, the way I have it set up. Of course, that's very representative of a 575, possibly even a 576 non-Autotune. But anyway, I'll stop yipping. You know what they are. Let's just see how one works relative to the other. And then I'll do some blocking with the 575, and let's just see how we like it. All right, let's just start with this and see if we can make this work. Alright, let's see if it restarts after a little heating up like that. Now, the first issue I got to solve is this. There's a little piece of rubber right there from that anti-vibe that blocks. It doesn't let the chips get out of there, so I'm going to go clip that off. The second thing I can tell you is a very smooth saw, not very loud because it's got that stock muffler. But that chain's crap. That chain's not letting it, you know, it's not doing it justice, I don't think. I don't want to let that stuff come out of there now. Right? And that's what it's making for chip. But I sure have to lean on it to make it cut fast. And that's the bad news, but the good news is I can lean on that saw and it doesn't stall. So it may not be quite as snappy and fast as the 5.72, but This may sound strange, but at the lower RPMs, I can lean on it a little bit harder. It doesn't stall the chain quite as fast as that 572 when it comes off the power band. You know, it's a nice saw. There's nothing wrong with the darn thing. I'm going to give it some more fuel. Let's see whether or not it gets a little bit better with 5 strokes of the file on the rakers. This is a chain that pretty much came right off the grinder. I can tell you about this saw is either a gas hog or it's got a small tank. Because it sucked down a whole tank of gas just doing that. Now, what I think the problem is not that at all. I think it's got a dirty air filter. Because it was pretty dirty. Yeah, I think its air filter is plugged is its biggest problem right now. But it has good power. There's nothing wrong with that saw. You can work with that thing. May not be pretty, you know. It may not be the most beautiful saw in the world. I'm going to run the crap out of it is what I'm going to do. Yeah. You got to work on the fuel usage. Like I said, I think that's simply an air filter. And I don't know if you noticed, I don't know if it showed on the times, but taking a few swipes off those rakers made just a huge difference. Now remember, that's a chain that I pretty much hit with a grinder. Today, I noticed I had to push on it pretty hard, so I took a few swipes with a flat file on the rakers. That's about it. The top plate was all right. Could be better, but it was all right. But just changing the raker really, I think, made a big difference. I didn't have to push on that saw hardly at all. That chain was self-feeding. So, getting late. I think I proved the point. That saw runs just fine. Nice saw to run. Really is. It's kind of like a quiet 372. A little heavier. It's about the same weight as an XTorq. And I don't get it. You know, the XTorqs did well because it had the 372 number. That saw doesn't weigh any more than a 372 XTorq. I'll bet it has more power stock. Now, of course, you can take an XTorq and mod the crap out of it and way outperform one of these because you can't do the same kinds of modifications. I think I showed you the cylinder and the transfers is why, plus the intake. But as a stock saw, muffler mod and compression hit, that's as strong as a 372 XTorq any day of the week. And I have a hunch that when I put a different air filter on it where it can actually suck air, do a muffler mod, it's not going to be too far off my my 572 is my feeling. It has good torque, which is interesting. I wonder what the rod ratio is. But it really does have good pull. I like the way it runs. Well, back in the shop, and we were able to do a little bit of tweak and tune on this saw before the rains came. So I can get this to zoom back out just a little bit. And, you know, we had to run into a few little issues like we always would. One I didn't expect. One's my own darn fault. And one of the things I had to do was take a little raker off the chain because I wanted to get a sense of how it ran relative to the 572 I've built. What I had done with this chain is I'd run it through the grinder, but I didn't change the height of the raker, so I had to push on it. The bad news was it didn't look good on video. The good news was I could lean on this damn thing. Even with this goofy stock muffler, it seemed to make pretty good power. So that was one thing. I had to tweak the chain. Later in the video, I ran it after I'd taken a few swipes off the rakers, and it cut a lot better. I think I'm going to do a few more today before I go up and test it. Second thing was the chain brake felt a little bit spongy for me. And I know, what the heck. Of course, it was broken. So that was something I have to resolve. Fortunately, I have another one from the other saw that we were using to blend parts from. Should fit right on there. That's from the 570. Another issue I had was when noodling, the noodles weren't coming out. And I may have fixed it. I'm not sure. I'm going to get in there and work a little more. But I'll pull the cover off. It's a good time to do that. But basically, what was happening is there's a little rubber anti-vibe deal on the case, between the case and the plastic handle. And there's a little string on it, or a little end on it for you to pull on. I hadn't cut it off, and it blocked the flow of chips for the noodles. Normal chips went right through it, but noodles didn't. So that created me a little hassle. So I think the addendum to the tweak and tune video I'm going to do right now, see if I can figure out why, what I can do to help the chips flow. And see, I cut that off, and that did help. Second thing is to show how to change chain brake handle. I may make this a video in of itself. I'm just going to show the results of it, and I'll do a little video about how to do it. But yeah, see the way that plastic deflector is in there? Man, it blocks. It all balls up in here, you know? It doesn't go flowing down through. Let me see what a new cover looks like. See if there's anything I can actually do about it. Now, I think this is a Chinese new cover, but it's a cover. Notice it's the same as a 372. Not really sure there's anything I can do. This is a Chinese clone cover. Doesn't look that bad, does it? Maybe I better put a nylon block right there. I'm going to run this cover until there's no reason to run it anymore. That's the one that was corroded off the 570. One is to replace chain brake. Yeah, they're pretty unique. Second is I'm going to try and see if I can clean this air filter out a little bit more, because I think that's a big restriction for this. Yeah, look at the shape. It's an odd shape. Got all kinds of dirt in there. Oh my God. There's dirt all inside. Oh my God. So I guess we have a few little things to work on. See, for me, part of the fun of all this is the tinkering. I don't have to win any freaking races, you know what I'm saying? But I do like to tinker. There's no doubt. All right, to start this process, I've got to take this cover plate off. Putting in that spring something you can do, protect yourself from the bucking spike so you don't get stabbed. But with a normal screwdriver, just grab, one winding in or two windings in, and with this compressed more, you can just pull it right in and set it if you're normal. Now, the very second you get that stuff together, get this cover on. Do not wait. Get it back on so they don't decide to bow and pop out of there. And I always start by putting that middle screw on first. So here's that little slot. I look right down there and just drop it right on top of it. Here we go digging. It means it's rocking from side to side. That's how you know we got it in there. Now this crankshaft has got a little piece busted off the end because somebody was kind of aggressive with a screwdriver, but it'll work. what happens sometimes is the circlip gets down inside there and it's hard to get it out. And all I'm going to do is just put the circlip on the side that doesn't have that. And if I don't have a problem with it, fine. If I do have a problem with it, now we have another saw project. Look at that. That'll hold it on. It really doesn't take much. So the last piece you got to do is put the cover plate back on. Blew out the air filter, so we're good on that. So where's my cover plates? Right here. Do that. There should be a screw in there. And there is. So yeah, we got thunder coming in. Maybe I won't be able to test it today. Again, I want to. Maybe I'll just call this a video. Set that right in there, crank it up. Get the bar and chain back on there. Let me put these things away. Put them away. Don't lose them. Oh, I know what I wanted to do before I really get crazy. I want to check the compression, because remember, well, you probably don't remember, the first video I did when I was trying to run these things is I stuck my compression gauge on this particular saw with that particular cylinder. Actually, that cylinder was on another set of cases, but we're going to call it collectively the saw. I only had about 135 pounds. Man, they're noisy, aren't they? And let's look at the plug anyway to see what color it is. Look at that. That's a nice spark plug right there. A nice darker brown. So we got the mixture tad on the rich side, which is what I want. I'm not looking for ultimate power. And I can look in there and see the beginnings of a pattern. All right, let me set this up here. Let's see what we have. All right, we went from we gained 10 pounds. That's all we really gained, is 10 pounds of pressure. Which means we have a lot more to go with this saw. You know what that kind of makes me want to do, don't you? Pull that cylinder off again at some point. Mill out that, or machine out the burr at the combustion chamber. Right there at the edge, the squish band. Flatten that out a little bit. Then drop that cylinder some more, and which would mean I'd probably have to do a little port work to the transfers, because either that or put a little eyebrow in the piston one in order to get the blowdown back where it needs to be on these strato saws. They kind of like short blowdown. Let's see if it starts. Community vibes, that'll help. Yeah, let's see if it runs now. See if it runs now. I bet that runs a little bit better now versus what it did the other day. So I set the idle down to about 25. It was up around 29, 2,500 RPMs. And the no load I set up around 13.1. And I think that's more than enough. So let's put it back together. It's actually a fairly nice sounding blend. I did get the air filter back on, so I'm not worried about that. So now I think I can put the bar and chain back on. I think I'll have a better running saw than I did before. I think you get the point. Leaning it out a little bit, made it a little bit snappier, adding a little more fuel in the bottom side of things. Picked up RPMs a little quicker. And what I had done yesterday, I'm going to put some in the vise right now, is take a little more off those rakers. Just take a little bit more. All right, what I did is I took a couple strokes with the file, 2 strokes a piece, starting with the gold link, ending at the gold link. And I took my flat file and I took 5 strokes on the raker. I brought it down, but I also cut a little bit of the angle off. And it exposes a little more of the side plate and the top plate. This saw has demonstrated to me that it has really nice torque, low end power for a saw like this, a modern saw. And of course you saw that I have it tuned for about 13,000, which is good enough for this saw. And so adding a little bit more bite to the chain might hamper something like the 572 or the hopped up 372s, but I think it plays into the strengths of this particular saw, this 575. And the one thing I can tell you from the short time I've run it is it's fairly quiet because it has a muffler that has not been modded. I like that. Now on a completely different subject. Not sure what I'm going to do with this just yet, but I found this. Let me put these away. Everything away. I found this axe for $15. I don't know whether it's worth anything. I bought it for 15 bucks. It says genuine Norland, Norlund. I don't know what a Norland is, but this is what this axe is. Nice sized head on it is what I saw. I like the 4-pounders. And I've had this thing sitting around for a long time. Don't know what to do with it. Got this at a junk sale, basically, for like 10 bucks. And I bought this handle right here from Coakley's up in Canton, New York for $22.99. 36-inch handle for 3 to 5 pound single bit axe. And doesn't have a brand name on it, but I like the grain of the wood. See how the grain is? The grain is this way. Actually, it's this way, but it's kind of in line with the forces, kind of like a baseball bat. So I know some people say that doesn't matter, and then one of the famous guys had one break and still said, well, it doesn't matter. But okay, whatever. I remember when I was in Little League, they used to stamp the label on the bat, and you'd always hit to the other side of the label, and you knew you had the grain right. They would actually orient the grain properly before they stamped in the label. Now this handle here is not broke. It's just dried out and been sitting outside, obviously. So what I want to do is see if I can take this handle out and see if I can oil it up, maybe bring it back to some level of life and put this bit on here. Put this one on it. Get it out of this axe head right here. And put the square one in there.